Good morning, students. Yesterday, we had seen how Mahatma Gandhi, after arriving in India from South Africa, started three major mass movements. The first one being, of course, in Bihar, that was Champaran Satyagraha, and then Kheda in Gujarat, and then Ahmedabad in Gujarat again. Today, we start the topic, the Rowlatt Act. Now, this is a very important act, because it led to a lot of events in India, which shaped the freedom struggle in India and the freedom movement in India for years to come, okay, till the independent status. So we start today with this topic, the Rowlatt Act. Emboldened with the success, Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha against the proposed Rowlatt Act of 1919. This act had been, now pay attention to this act had been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. It gave the government enormous powers to repress political activities and allowed detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience against such unjust laws, which would start with a hartal on 6th of April. Now, emboldened with the success, that is, as we had seen in the previous videos, what had happened, especially once the First World War had ended, that the decision to drag India into the First World War in Europe had been extremely unpopular with the people, and the British had made certain promises also that once the First World War would be over, they would be granting certain concessions to Indians, which ultimately they refused to do. And Gandhiji had also come to India, and it was felt by everyone, every citizen of India, that yes, it was now time to fight a decisive battle against the British. The British had been around for almost 150 years by then, because they had come to India in the first major push into India was in 1757. So naturally, we were living in the times of 1920. So it has definitely been more than 150 years, and it was very strongly felt that now we've had enough of the Britishers. Now it was time to push them and kick them out of India and send them from wherever they had come. So definitely Mahatma Gandhi, and as we saw that after these agitations, the mass agitations that he had launched in 1917 and 18 and 19, in these three, he was very, very encouraged and motivated, because people from different walks of life came to him and wanted him to now launch a nationwide wide agitation, because these agitations, mass agitations, were mainly confined to his home state, which was Gujarat, and of course Bihar. But then South India was completely left untouched, and it was very strongly felt that it was time to give a final push to the British. And British now realized this problem, that it was going to be now very tough for them to manage and to control India, and so they had to bring about very, very strong and draconian laws, essentially implying very harsh laws to control all this sudden burst of political activity. Because earlier times, before Mahatma Gandhi really made non-violent struggle his major principle, and he started propagating it, and he wanted rest of the country to follow as well. Before that, it was also, there were a lot of people who were into the belief that yes, the British can be defeated militarily, and so the British didn't have to worry much about them, because there would be people like Bhagat Singh or Chandrasekhar Azad and a lot of other people who were kind of aggressive in their approach to get rid of British. So it was easy for them, the Britishers, to handle all, because they had that experience of doing that, and around the world, how to strengthen the military, how to strengthen the police force, and how to tackle all these revolutionaries. But then for the first time, and the number of revolutionaries, naturally it was limited, but for the first time it was a mass agitation, it was a mass movement where everyone from every home was now participating. Now no government anywhere on the planet can have enough of a police force to really tackle. If everyone from every home starts coming out and to participate in mass agitations, and this is and that's exactly was the reason why the police had to be given more powers, and naturally more strong and harsh laws had to be passed. And the first major push from the British side had come once they had passed the Rowlatt Act. And this act provide three very, very important powers to the police. Uh, Hurriedly passed through the imperial legislature, it gave the government enormous powers to repress political activities and allowed detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Now, the government could now arrest anyone and keep them in prison for 2 years without any trial. Okay, now this is something, this doesn't happen even in the British India. It never used to happen, because if you are arrested, you have to be, that's what the law is. If you are arrested, you have to be presented before the magistrate, and then depending on what the judge or the magistrate says, that's how the things move. But here there was no need to take a political prisoner to the magistrate or to the court of law. He could straight away be sent to the jail, and that too for such a long period of 2 years without any hearing. The second very harsh thing about this Rowlatt Act was that uh, the second very important thing was that the police could search up your place without any warrant. Guys, this was something unheard of. The police could enter any house. Though I don't know, it is not written in this paragraph, but the police could enter any house and could search the house for whatever it wished to do without any warrant or without any approval of the magistrate. Okay, and the third being, of course, the power given to the police to be as brutal as possible against the civilians. So naturally, a whole mass movement was launched against this law, which was considered to be very harsh, and it was known that yes, it would give enormous powers to the civil administration to be to legitimize the brutality against the people who were fighting for the freedom of the countries. Now, rallies were organized in various cities. Workers went on strike in railway workshops, and shops closed down. Alarmed by the popular upsurge and scared that lines of communication, such as railways and telegraph, would be disrupted, the British administration decided to clamp down on nationalists. Local leaders were picked up from Amritsar, and Mahatma Gandhi was barred from entering Delhi. On 10th of April, the police in Amritsar fired upon a peaceful procession, revoking widespread attacks on banks, post offices, and railway stations. Martial law was imposed, and General Dyer took command. Now, since when, once the Rowlatt Act was passed, things started going out of hand in different parts of India, and the British understood that. And okay, and the situation, as it is mentioned here, that in Amritsar, the situation really got out of hand, and martial law was imposed. Now, students, what do you and since we do not have a board to explain, but I'll just try to keep it short. Now, martial law is essentially, in clean, simple, general terms, it means um, all the suspension or the complete suspension of civilian laws. And in a particular district, or in a particular state, or sometimes in particular the whole of country, where the civilian laws get suspended and mostly replaced by the military takes the command. Okay, now the whole civilian administration also now starts to take command from the British, from the military, because it is the military that becomes the decision maker. And this is what had happened in Amritsar when General Dyer took over as the command of the whole Amritsar town. And that is when we have always studied in history that this was the prelude for the infamous act of Jallianwala Bagh. On 13th of April, the infamous Jallianwala Bagh incident took place. On that day, a large crowd had gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala. Some came to protest against the government's new repressive measures. Others had come to attend the annual Baisakhi fair, being from outside the city. Many villagers were unaware of the martial law that had been imposed, and Dyer entered the area, blocked the exit points, and opened fire on the crowd, killing hundreds. It is believed that about 1,300 to 1,500 citizens, innocent citizens, were killed. Um, his object, as he declared later, was to produce a moral effect to create in the minds of satyagrahis a feeling of terror and awe. And this is what happened in Jallianwala Bagh, of course, one of the most black chapters of our freedom struggle. And which it really because this act achieved this mistake, or this brutality from the Britishers was able to, it really shocked the whole nation. And it was because after this act that from east to west and from north to south, every citizen of this country was horrified. And uh, the, now that everyone was horrified that this is how the British treat Indian lives, now it was time to kick them out. And this was the biggest blunder that the British could have done, because in the early days, of course, the freedom struggle was more or less kind of localized. Sometimes in Uttar Pradesh, sometimes it used to be uh, somewhere in Bihar, then sometimes in Punjab, and then it was there was no concerted effort. Different people doing different things in different parts of the country. But now, for the first time, there was a resounding uh, no about the presence of British in India after this Jallianwala Bagh incident. Okay, and coming to this, while the Rolet Satyagraha had been a widespread movement, it was still limited mostly to cities and towns. Mahatma Gandhi now felt the need to launch a broad based movement in India. Okay, but he was certain that no such movement would be organized without bringing the Hindus and Muslims together. One way of doing he felt was to take off the Khilafat issue. The First World War had ended the defeat of Ottoman Turkey, and there were rumors. We'll have to continue with this tomorrow. But let me just tell you that Mahatma Gandhi was Rowlatt Act was definitely a success, but it was mainly a success in the towns and cities, not much in the villages, because most of the political activity used to happen in towns and villages. And Rowlatt Act was a very much an act which gave the power to the police and the civilian authority. And the villagers normally used to be busy minding their own business about crops and cultivation and farming and those kind of things. So naturally, uh, the mass agitation in against the Rowlatt Act was much more concentrated in the towns and cities. Thank you.